exclusive. And tonight we wanted to introduce y'all to our good friend Chappie. And I wanted to get a chance to introduce y'all to Chappie, and you'll understand why his appearance is blurred out as we get into the discussion here. But we met probably about a year ago or so,
Yep.
and we met at a homestead meetup event. And these kind, generous people said, "Hey, would you want a papered cooney pig?" And so for any of y'all that follow the channel, Chappie is the previous owner of Hamilton, the pig that is one of our mascots on the homestead here, Ham and Beans, as we affectionately call them, who just had 6 beautiful piglets. So thank you, Chappie, for that. And so we got to meet a great family, and we got to talking. And Chappie and I are in a similar type of working industry, so we had a lot in common there. We got the whole homesteading thing in common, um, and there was a lot of commonality there. And then as we stayed in contact, uh, Chappie started telling me about these missions he was doing, like in South America and Europe and stuff, and I was very fascinated by it. And when he explained that it was the OUR, I was familiar with Tim Ballard's organization from different platforms like Blaze TV and from JP Sears and different things. And I was like, wow, that's really neat. So I want Chappie to get a chance to introduce himself, tell us all a little bit more about himself, tell us about who and what OUR is, what they stand for, what they do. What we're doing is trying to create awareness and help fundraise for them to fund some of these upcoming missions. And there's also a new release. There's a movie coming out, I think, with Jim Caviezel. That's like the story of Tim Ballard. So there's a lot of neat stuff. There's a lot of things going on, and they're doing God's work. They're doing some awesome stuff with, and they deal with the worst of the worst people on planet Earth. These people that traffic in young children and older children and young adults, and it's sad and it's sick, but there's great people out there like Chap that are putting the boots on the ground and making stuff happen. So Chappie, tell us a little bit about yourself and the OUR program and what you all are doing.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on here, and thank you for the opportunity to spread the word. And we've been following you guys since you guys were, came on and live. And I know my wife is communicates with you guys a lot in the live streams and whatnot, and I do it when I can. And happy to meet you guys. It's been fun to see you guys this few times that we have. So that's been a blessing to us as well. So to make a long story kind of short and fit it in here and open it up for Q&A as well. Several years ago, when my girls were young, they're now both adults. When my girls were young, we lived in an area of Central Texas that had a boys and girls home. And the girls' home was the first, or thereabouts, the first known home for girls who had been sexually trafficked. And we got involved in that ministry. It still exists. It's a God-fearing ministry. I was one of the Bible teachers there. My wife also helped as well out there. One of our daughters attended there for a little while just to kind of integrate with them and bring some normalcy into their lives. And so we really started out on the rehabilitation side, if you will. The aftercare is really what we try to call it instead of rehabilitation, just because of that negative connotation. And so on the aftercare side of things is really where we started. And getting to see firsthand what these girls went through was just mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. And I'm a former firefighter, paramedic, EMT, seen that, been there, done that. Still a fire chaplain and a sheriff's chaplain, hence the Chappie nickname that came about. And so I still see all that stuff. But as you said, there is nothing in the world that is as bad, as extreme, as disgusting as the human trafficking, specifically the sex trafficking of boys and girls that are, of the age, and the youngest that we've been involved with is 4 months old, all the way up to 18 and past that. But at that point, it kind of goes into another realm, right? It's not part of our underage, thing, but we do deal with them. We do find them, we do help them, and we do deal with them on the aftercare side. But many people seem to think that this is a new thing, right? Like it just in the last 10 years has really started to catch a lot of attention. And it's not new.
No.
It is growing. It is growing faster than the demand for drugs. And the reason for that is the cartels who own these children. You can sell a dime bag one time, and that's your profit. But you can sell a girl or a young boy 16 or 20 times in a day, every day. So you're forcing them to perform a sexual act that many times in a day, and you're collecting each and every time. So the profit margin alone for these cartels in doing this is much, much higher than it is in the drug trade. And so it's quickly growing and becoming the fastest growing illegal activity in the world.
And with this current talk of critical race theory and reparations, what a crime it is for different people that buy into this foolish postmodern post-truth concept of critical race theory, and they have had no concept of what slavery is or even remotely affected them, but they want taxpayers to pay them $5 million. Meanwhile, back in reality, children of all creeds and colors are being enslaved and trafficked of the most heinous kind. These children aren't being forced to do just manual labor. They're being forced to do the most unthinkable, horrific things that the mind of Satan can conceive. And it really is disparaging to hear fools talk about like reparation stuff and how much they suffered, while this child trafficking is so prolific and pervasive here in the United States and obviously around the world.
100%. And those that think that this is primarily happening in other countries are sadly mistaken. The United States is the largest territory that participates in this, disgusting field. OUR, Operation Underground Railroad, and if you go to OURrescue.org, you can see all the different things. And keep in mind that I'm a volunteer for OUR. Don't get paid by them. I'm not a staffer or anything else. But go to their website, check it out. The stats are there. The information is there. OURrescue.org. But to your point, the United States is the top producer and the top taker of child sex trafficking. And it's common for us on this channel and other channels like this to talk about our freedoms, right? And hey, we've got to maintain our freedom. We've got to take back our freedoms. We can't let certain government things happen because we're losing our freedoms. Unfortunately, with that same freedom comes the inability to do certain things that we all think we should be able to do, right? In other words, the ability exists for us to go online and find every IP address that's uploading and downloading child pornography right now in any given zip code. right? We can do that. That exists. In fact, that was paid for by a very, very, very well known Hollywood actor to help create that software package. The problem is we can't do that without search warrants in the United States, right? And so you have to juggle this because you've got the worst crimes going on, but then you can't give away freedoms and take away freedoms in order to stop that, because we all know it doesn't stop there. Once we give it, it just taketh and keep taking and keep taking.
Yeah.
But we were able to do something recently. You can find it online. I just was down in Austin roughly a month ago at the sentencing hearing for a Round Rock ISD teacher who OUR, along with the assistance of HSI and other government agencies in South America, Colombia, found this teacher down there doing these heinous things to kids. And we tracked him back with the help of HSI. We found him, brought him back to justice in the United States, and we were able to prosecute him within the United States because he was communicating from within the United States before going down there. And so there's a lot of things that Operation Underground Railroad does within the U.S. to support U.S. law enforcement agencies that doesn't get seen. And so OUR really is a force multiplier in a lot of ways within the U.S., providing equipment, providing certain funding for a lot of things, license plate readers, undercover operations that law enforcement wants to do that OUR operatives can't be a part of because they're not licensed law enforcement officers in the United States. So OUR does have a large presence within the United States. It just doesn't have that visible presence. A lot of it's behind the scenes, a lot of it's money going to law enforcement agencies for, again, equipment and operations. What people see online and what people see and hear about, and if they go to the website, they'll see a lot of the stuff that's taking place overseas. There's some stuff going on all over the world right now. Specifically, my area that I am involved in is Latin and South America. Headed back down in a couple of weeks on an operation called Operation Lighthouse. That's already been posted and put up on the website. And we're going to go finalize that in a couple of weeks. That involves, again, some American dirtbags who have been prosecuted in the United States years and years ago and then left the country. They go down to these other areas of the world and set up businesses in areas of a lot of tourism. And so you get Americans and other nationalities coming into those areas of tourism, and they go and they buy kids. They go and they literally buy children to have sex with and do horrific things for hours or days at a time. And these children, to your point, they are slaves. They are not just enslaved, meaning they're forced to do these things. But it is not uncommon for them to be at night or during the day when they're not working, locked in rooms, tied up if necessary, bound to furniture so they can't get around. A lot of them are branded, and there's some incredible ministries in the United States that are now working with these victims in order they'll take the brand off. They'll go and do a tattoo. They'll take that brand off and make it go away so that they don't have to have that physical memory of being branded by that cartel to do that. And, this is just one of those things that it is so heinous and so egregious. Most people want to just turn a blind eye to it and ignore it. It's so bad that you don't want to admit that evil exists to the point where a grown man would go and rape a 4-month-old, a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old boy or girl for their pleasure. And so I understand why most people want to turn a blind eye to it because it's that horrendous. But we've got to do something. We've got to step up. Scripture tells us that we're here to help, the needy and the widows and the children, right? That's what we're here for. And that's what we got to do. And that's what OUR is there doing around the world, is going out and rescuing children from sex trafficking and sexual exploitation.
So what does one of these operations cost? Like say the one that's coming up, how much, what's the total funding for one of these operations?
Good question. So again, depending on its location, of course, depending on the size of the operation. What I mean by that is once we get intelligence information that there's some movement going on in a certain area, that our teams will go out, the front teams will go out, build that information, collect on it. And if it's, we're able to go after 6 girls or boys, 6 children, that's one size, right? But in this one coming up, it's supposed to be 20 girls and as many as 10 or 12 boys that we're supposed to be able to rescue. So that takes a whole nother set of operators. You can't just go in with a team of 6 to do something of that scale, that size. So these operations can easily cost $150,000 to $250,000 from beginning to end. And that's for the operators to go down. That includes obviously all the transportation, all the funding. And look, we got to go down and do things like throw a party in order to get the attention of the traffickers to bring them in to show them we're there. So the party's not free, right? I mean,
Right.
And we can't go knock on somebody's door in another country and say, here's who we are, here's what we do. Will you please give us this house for free for a week so we can do this? Because we don't know who they are. And we don't know that they don't know the traffickers and whatnot. And so, yeah, it's expensive. And then there's the aftercare. And so the aftercare to get these children from where they've been sold either back home, and we try to find out, were they kidnapped and taken, and can we return them back home to their families, or were they sold by a family member? Because if they were sold by a family member, well, then we don't want to send them back home. So then we go find a location in that country that will take them, that we have vetted and OUR is a part of in either vetting or funding and all of those things, and give them aftercare for years, as long as they need it. There's a really cool story that I was just told in a meeting a few weeks ago, that one of the first kids that Tim Ballard rescued, so this is now pushing 10 plus years ago, when he did his first OUR rescue, when he left the US federal government to do this, that boy has now set up his own business in South America as a hairstylist. OUR paid for his aftercare, paid for him to go to school. They even brought him to the US and helped him go through a specific barber school or cosmetology school in the US. And now he's got his own business up and going down there in South America, and he's helping OUR. So
wow, that's great.
After that many years of doing it and that much time and money and invested, we're starting to see the results of what is happening from beginning to end, right? We're starting to see these kids who are now becoming adults and being able to live productive lives.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great story. Do you have any other reunification stories that you're aware of on any operations that you've done?
Yeah, so we've got some stories of where, again, we found out that the 6-year-old girl was, when she was saved, we found out where she came from and that she was actually kidnapped. And so we were able to reunite her with her family in order to, help her reestablish that. And then OUR helped that family go through all of the, the rehabilitation and the aftercare and whatnot. And so there are quite a few stories of being able to reunite some of these children with their families all over the world. And, it truly is a blessing when we're able to do that. And it's really heartbreaking when you find out that they were sold by a family member into this. And there are countries that's a regular thing. I've been over to Uganda, not on behalf of OUR, but I've been to Uganda on mission trips, and I've listen to the OUR operations that are going on in Uganda and whatnot, that's one of those countries that, you know, selling their children is a regular thing because they have kids all of the time and they can't afford them. You know, they don't do birth control, and they've got the AIDS epidemic is rampant over there, killing off family members left and right. And these kids are just being sold to whomever. And a lot of times these people are trying to sell them to, and this isn't just Uganda specific, but a lot of times these families are trying to sell them to who they think are an orphanage, right? They think they're selling them to a legitimate outfit. And then it turns out that that outfit is just a front for human trafficking.
Right.
And that, and they are turning around and selling these kids on the open market. You may have heard about the one in Panama recently with the 14 Ukrainian girls that were on a cargo container.
Yep. Okay.
So, you know, this is not specific to a certain region of the world. It is not specific to a certain region of the United States. You know, you and I talked about it kind of before the show and in other times. In our little community of homesteading, we think, man, we're country bumpkins. We live in the country, man. This isn't happening, right?
Yeah, right.
But it is. It is. And I can tell you that I live on a major thoroughfare in Central Texas that runs all the way from Houston to West Texas, and it's driving through every single day, which means it's also stopping for me at the local gas stations, at the local food stores, at the local whatever, when they're pulling over. And it happens. And so I'm working with my local law enforcement here to train them on how to spot human trafficking, not just narcotics. Like, hey, great, you're stopping the drugs. But if you're stopping the drugs, there's also human trafficking going on. It's right. They're hand in hand together. And so I'm working to help get them the resources and training to be able to identify and stop that even in our little homesteading community, right? Because it happens.
Is there a parallel between, are the same cartels that are drug trafficking facilitating the human trafficking as well?
Yes.
Wow.
And others are just participating in human trafficking and not drug trafficking.
Wow.
And when I say cartel, I'm using that word with respect to an organized group of business in doing that, not necessarily
correct. Like the banking cartel.
You got it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is human trafficking. Is that $100 billion a year industry?
Yes. If not more.
Yeah. I think it's 164 billion or something they estimated at. So it's incredible. And I forget what industries they compared it to, but it grossly eclipses many major industries. And it's incredibly tragic.
It's 100%. 100%. And, you know, and let's be honest about it. And when they throw those numbers out of human trafficking at 160 to $200 billion a year, you're also talking about the agricultural side of things, right? You're talking about the large ag farms and stuff who are bringing in people from South America and other parts of the world in order to pick their crops and do all of that work too. So it is definitely not 160 to 200 billion just on the sex trafficking side. That is the human trafficking side. And it's estimated that it's 40.3 million people a year are trafficked.
Wow. Man,
you know,
that's incredible.
So, you know, going back to the number game, take 160, billion divided by, 40.3 million. How many times a day does that account for how much per person, right? That's a lot of money per person individually turning a job or a trick or, being forced to do something they don't want to do to make $160 billion.
So okay, so if people want to get involved and help out, whether it's funding or whatnot, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, great question. So there are a lot of different ways to help. And if you go to OURrescue.org, there's all the information is on there, the resources and what we do and joining the fight. to financially give one time or monthly, and you can buy merch to help out. But look, it's not just about, being the person with the boots on the ground, as you said, to go out and do stuff, right? There are school groups that are organizing within a community that are saying, hey, we want to go to the high schools and start in junior high and start talking about sexting and start talking about the grooming that is happening online to these kids.
Right.
I mean, it is happening daily to our kids. I was reading an article today about some 17-year-old boy that got kidnapped, and it was within the U.S. and his mom had been warning him about sexting and being online and getting groomed online. She was trying to do her best, and she did the best she could, and he still got kidnapped and was taken and whatnot. And so these things are very real. But again, you can get into OUR through education and awareness classes, selling things, doing fundraisers like a 5K or a walking or a 4th of July parade, and sending and handing out OUR postcards that, raise awareness about OUR and what we're doing. Things within your community, get together with the local law enforcement and talk to them about, hey, is it happening? What are you seeing? What should we be looking for? Right.
Right.
What are the signs when I go into a grocery store, or in some cases a Target or a Walmart or whatever, any store for that matter, and I see this kind of weird dude in the toy aisle, kind of look like, what should I be looking for? And maybe what's okay to tell somebody, I think this is out of place, versus maybe I'm just being paranoid or whatnot. And so you can get involved with OUR in those ways and learn that and find that information and then share it, pass it on to school age kids, pass it on to other people, go to sporting events. And now you've got a more broadened sense of awareness as to what's going on around you when you're going to sporting events. If you remember that 14-year-old girl in Dallas that left the American Airlines Center not long ago during a game, and she was taken, right? I mean, it's just having situational awareness is part of knowing what's going on. It's not only part of homesteading, just like we have to be aware of our animals and the heat and the cold and what's going on. This is no different. This is really, you can get trained online, read about it, and then have somebody even talk to a group and go and share that information.
What else I thought was fascinating is how many public school teachers are actively involved or are perpetually getting busted in this whole process. This speaks to the whole topic of homeschooling for predominantly, but also these poor children that are being predatored upon in the government school systems. Can you speak any to that? Because I think you've had interactions with several different public school teachers.
Correct. We've had interactions with several public school teachers, several being a nice word. Too many. Let's put it that way. We've had too many interactions with public school teachers, superintendents, all the way down to teachers, all the way down to one recently who was, and I don't have, excuse me, I don't have all of the details, but I do know that this one individual teacher had been bumped from 3 different schools in less than 5 years, which is very unusual for a school teacher to be bounced from one school to another school to another school that many times within 5 years. And so I think there was probably some things going on there that they couldn't necessarily confirm. There was maybe some allegations that they couldn't necessarily, confirm were accurate. And so instead of just bye, see ya, this guy was moved to 2 more schools after that and continued doing what he was doing until it finally caught up with him. And so our school system is ripe with it. And that was just elementary school. I mean, it absolutely goes on all the way through high school and college. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully to make sure. It is right. It is rampant within the public school system.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, especially the grooming, even if the misconduct isn't happening, the grooming is happening, the
Right.
allowance and pervasive acceptance of all things, and therefore it's
Yeah.
not bad. If you want to, account for that as a part of this, it's rampant.
Yeah,
Rampant.
and this is why we talk about homeschooling as a viable option, not just so that your kids will learn more appropriate things and be smarter and do better and advance and be ahead of all the government school kids, but they also will not be exposed to predators and child traffickers and groomers, and that's not even speaking to all this transformer stuff that they're foisting on everyone from the cradle to the grave, which is all this whole trans agenda is just amplifying and exacerbating this whole trafficking mess um, even more.
Correct. 100%. One of the other things that I wanted to share is Jim Caviezel, the famous actor, plays Tim Ballard in a new movie coming out on July 4th called The Sound of Freedom. And you can go online, do a search, find it, spread the word, send it out, buy the ticket in advance. And I will tell you that OUR is taking 000 money from this movie. It is about Tim Ballard. Tim's not taking money from the movie. It's going to the production company who ended up having to buy this from Hollywood because it was being, let me just say, not put out. And so Angel Studios had to go and buy this, and they're the ones that put out Passion for the Christ and a bunch of other stuff. And so they had to go and buy this, and it took them a long, long time to make that happen. And with the Lord's blessing, they were able to get it. And so they are now pushing it out. It's going out July 4th. But going and seeing that and spreading that word, and everybody going on their social media and, finding it and spreading it, all of that helps to raise awareness and to save kids from this, horrendous act of what's going on around the world.
So they can go to OURrescue.com. I think there is information and even a trailer on there about the new movie that's being released on July 4th. There's opportunities to get educated there. There's opportunities to donate there, buy merch, create awareness. Matt, did you have any questions for Chappie or?
Maybe could you give us some stuff on like maybe what to be looking out for like these child trafficker guys or whatever, just to be aware in our surroundings maybe?
Yeah, good question, Matt. So, one of the most common things to be aware of and kind of pay attention to is when you've got these little children with adults, and if you pay attention, they just don't seem to be like really lovey-dovey, really caring, right? He's either like got one by the wrist and is pulling them along, or they're locked in the car while he goes into the gas station to get stuff. And I'm not saying that is 100%, what's going on every time, but it's like, they don't want to be seen with that awkward what's happening deal. And so if you pay attention to the body language of the child, and then what's happening with the adult, you'll be able to really see that there's something just abnormal and not quite right. Their eyes are not, they're not happy. Their eyes are not, gleaming with joy that they're going into the store and getting something, right? They're being drug along in a place they don't want to be. And I've seen this on traffic stops. I've seen it in other places to where, and this is where the training of law enforcement comes in because it's new to them. It's easy when they say, "Who's the child with you?" "Oh, that's my niece." "What's your niece's name?" Right? "Oh, it's Alicia." "What's Alicia's last name?" "I don't know." And then you get Alicia and you go, "What's your name?" "It's not Alicia." What, and so obviously that's not something you're seeing when walking through the store, to answer your question, but those mannerisms are the same. it's just not, there's just something out of place, right? There's something
Yeah.
out of place. The one dude in a car full of kids, girls primarily, and none of them are happy, and they all look like they want to be somewhere else, probably because they want to be somewhere else, you know. And those are the times to call law enforcement and say, look, I don't want to be that guy, but I want to be that guy. I want to be that person who was like, just happened to get this off read, called 911, and the deputy pulled him over a mile and a half down the road. And guess what? Those 4 kids didn't belong to him.
Wow.
Or 1 kid, you know. And so, you know, again, you know, to your point, if you go to OURrescue.org, go under the resources, there's things like online safety. There's podcast and the blog. You can go over to other things about the Abolitionist Club and the volunteering and the events and fundraising. But you can absolutely get involved in your area, wherever that is, however big or small a community that is, and raise awareness. And again, I can't reiterate enough that this isn't just about raising awareness that a minor doesn't walk away from their parents in a store in a big city. That's not only what this is about, because the biggest place that this is taking effect right now and the biggest increase is online grooming.
Wow.
It's online.
Yeah.
These 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds are being groomed online through games and through different social media things and whatnot. And that's where it's happening. And so that's where people, even in our communities of homesteading, need to pay attention and make sure that their kids aren't being groomed.
Right. And I mean, parents that care just really need to, you know, they really need to be, their children should not be on any type of social media. They shouldn't have any kind of direct access to the internet, certainly not unsupervised. It is, it's incredible. I can't get over the fact that parents would do that. But, you know, it just makes a tragic scenario times 1,000 when these neglected children that are improperly cared for and parented for then get groomed and get snatched up by a child trafficker. It is, I mean, it's like triple tragic.
It really is. You know, it really is. And the sad thing is the reason it's so pervasive is because it's the easy thing to do. It's easy to put your kid in front of a computer or a tablet and let them play games and do what they want to do while you're cooking dinner or while you're cleaning or while you're doing the things that you need to do. That's the easy thing to do. And so that's what happens. And then they get, you know, groomed. They get picked on and they get groomed. And all of a sudden, you know, what you think is making your life easier, when your child gets taken, your life's no longer easier. You know, now you're looking to, you know, different organizations to find your kid. And, you know, it's scary. It is, you know, it is scary how, and you've talked about it before on your channel, just the addiction to all of the online stuff that it's made that way. It's made to draw people in. It's made to do that. Well, that's what's happening, and it's happening at a younger age. And so now all of a sudden you try to break that habit and get them off of that. You've lost that fight.
Yeah. It's the digital addiction to the blue screen and the serotonin hits and all that stuff. The, you know, it's kind of incredible. And then of course, then you have these predators that are tripling down on it and making it. I was just looking at some of the comments on Rumble. Stacy from over at Financial Prepper, that's what she was just about to say, online grooming. And it's a quintessential part in all of this because it actually facilitates what they're doing. And really with the grooming, what's really sad is you'll have a child that's in a quote unquote more normal environment and in a more stable environment with parents that seem to care, but here this child gets isolated on a device, you know, by a groomer in their own little metaverse, for lack of a better term. and
Right.
then they get groomed and exposed to this, to something that if they just didn't have that connectivity, wouldn't have never even taken place. And then the next thing you know, they get snatched up and they're a commodity.
Correct.
And that is
Correct.
just, that's so tragic that people are, you know, and some parents are just so oblivious, you know, they just don't know. That's why it is so important to like get the word out and say, hey, this stuff is happening now. You know, the time for normalcy bias is dead and over. I mean, we're being attacked on every level, physically, spiritually,
Correct.
mentally. They're attacking the food. You know, and now they've commoditized our children. You know, they're trying to sterilize us and, you know, create an entire generation that can't even reproduce. And in the meantime, they're going to harvest our children and pimp them out, and monetize them to make billions of dollars.
Right.
It is unreal.
Well, and that's a great point. And let's unpack that for a second, because so many of these children are end up in this environment for years, you know,
Yeah.
10 years, 12 years before they're pulled out, rescued or pulled out. Some never are. Some are in for less when they are able to get rescued and get pulled out of there. But the ones that are in there for an extended time, it is the healing process is unbelievably long. I mean, I don't even know that you truly, and I know plenty of victims, and I don't know that there's ever truly full healing, even with, you know, even with them coming to Christ and the bloodshed of Christ and having a relationship with Christ. That trauma is still there. You know, they
Mm,
still have to become adults, and then they're
yeah.
still expected to hold jobs. Then they're still expected to have a family at some point, and maybe that's just a spouse, maybe that's not, maybe whatever. That's just kind of the expectation, right? Well,
Yeah.
you take this child who was groomed and traded for 10 years or more, and now at some point in time you expect them to go have a healthy relationship with a spouse,
Yeah.
and then be a parent that doesn't do this. I mean,
Right.
the number of times that we've been involved in cases in which the parents were also trafficked, and that's why they had their kids trafficked. They were selling their
Mm,
kids. That's what they knew. So trying
yeah.
to break that chain,
The
which
cycle.
ironically, if you go and you look at the OUR logo, it's a chain, right? And it's
Yeah.
a broken chain. And it's a chain for that reason, to break the chain within a family cycle of trafficking. Stop selling your kid. You
Mm,
were sold as a kid, so now you're selling your kid, and your kid's going to
mhm.
sell their kid.
Yeah.
So that chain needs to be broken so that that stops. But to do that, this isn't, and I don't want to diminish anybody, including my family members who've had to go through, you know, in struggle, who've had struggle with alcoholism and have had to come off of that and have had to deal with that. That's an addiction that's hard to break. But this is something 10 times worse than that. 10 times worse than that. And it goes on for much, much, much longer, because you don't have to deal with certain emotional issues again until all of a sudden you decide to become a partner with somebody, or you decide to
Mhm.
become a parent, and now you have kids of your own.
Mm,
And now you have these triggers, if you want to, for lack of a better term, that
Mm.
bring certain things back up that now you're dealing with again. So your recovery period is lifelong from
yeah.
this. This is not a 12-step program, 18-month program to stop doing drugs or alcohol. Again, not diminishing that that's difficult to do, but this is lifelong,
Yeah.
you know. And so the cost associated with aftercare is monstrous. And
Mm,
we were successful in that Austin case I was telling you about, for the first time in the United States, to have a judge order restitution back to for $100,000, even though it would cost more than that. The judge ordered $100,000 paid back. Whether we ever see it or not, no telling.
right.
I mean, he may come out and never get a job again. may
Right.
not even make it out of prison. But to that point,
Hmm.
we're finally seeing the legal system kind of be of help on that side as well.
Stacy had a question. Do you see the child being promised items or safety? What do you see that they're using to entice these children to enslave them, as far as to like snatch them up?
So initially, it is always either a product or a better life. It's always, here's a toy, depending on the age. Here's some food. I'll take you to this amusement park or whatever, right? It's at the beginning, it's always something along those lines. Then once they're there, then it becomes the threat of physical abuse and capture. I mean, you're just,
Yeah.
you know, does that mean, Stacy, that it's never a straight up kidnapping and just taken? No, that happens. We see plenty of that even within the United States. Recently with a mother putting a kid in a car, after she was coming out of a grocery store, put her kid in a car, and somebody opened up the car door from the other side and grabbed the kid while she was putting groceries in the car, right?
Yeah.
So does it happen?
Awareness.
Yes. Yeah. But generally speaking, to answer you, Stacy, there is some sort of enticement.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just really just speaks to that whole situational awareness. And as you know, with this flooding, with this invasion at the border, and all of these adult males coming over with all different kinds of origins, we really do have to be much more self-aware. We have to be incredibly aware of our surroundings. Once again, that speaks to the fondle slabs and the portable telephone devices.
Yep.
Keep them in your pockets when you're in public, and keep your head on a swivel, and be well armed, and be proficient with your arms, and
Sure.
be ready to protect yourself, be ready to protect your children, be ready to protect other people's children,
Right.
and other people. And if a couple of these guys that went to snatch a kid out of the car uh ate something and landed on the concrete and couldn't get up, the world would be a better place, and it would be, a good illustration for why you should get a different job.
That's correct. You're 100% right. And on that note as well, I keep saying, guys, let's not be naive to the fact that there are women involved in the trafficking aspect of it, that there are women involved in the taking aspect of it, that there are women involved in the grooming aspect of it. And usually it's because they were taken and groomed and all of those things, and they are being forced to do it. But don't be only paying attention to men who are walking around your car and
Sure.
think that, oh, it's a woman, and so I don't need to worry about it, because that's not true at all.
Yeah, just look at the whole Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and the
Yep.
Nexium cult. They were all branded too,
Yep.
and that was just a really high-end, high-dollar thing. But it was like the Gucci of
Correct.
the sex trafficking world, and it was in plain sight, and it was publicly traded. I mean, incredible, and incredibly high-powered people involved, and still are involved. It's pretty. It's very hard to believe, if we want to stay in this ignorant state where, oh, I just can't. So many people are like, oh, I just can't even think about that. That's so terrible. And they literally are like, well, then it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And
Right.
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's mind boggling. It is the most rewarding and yet the most frustrating and disgusting thing at the same time. Like, you can't possibly get on two different planes in such a short period of time, going from the most horrific thing to then saving a child from that, right? Like, just seeing like that emotional swing of hearing the stories and seeing that stuff, and then you're like, I just want to obliterate everybody and everything, because this just shouldn't be happening. and then then you're rescuing the child and pulling them out of that. And so, but that emotional toll that it takes on the operators who do this on a daily basis and the aftercare workers who have to hear this and do it on a daily basis, it's incredible. It's mind numbing how how hard it is.
Yeah, I can't imagine the emotional roller coaster involved in participating in that, once or twice or 10 times. It definitely has to take an emotional toll on everybody involved in the whole process.
Yeah, it does. I've talked to, I do not have a military background. I've got a firefighting background, but most of the operators that are out there, a large majority of them are former special forces military guys and gals who have come to OUR and are a part of the operations group at OUR. And even Tim and Matt Osborne, come from the CIA and whatnot. But the military guys who've been in war, been in combat, we're talking tier 1 level operator, ST, team 6, team 2, Rangers, Green Berets, all of those guys. They're all out there. I've talked to them and they're like, I'd rather do that. I would rather go back to war and deal with the mental issues that this is because of how disgusting it is of what happens and what is transpiring, and having to maintain that face, having to maintain that operative level composure to not blow it, to not just want to wring the guy's neck when he's offering up the kids. You got to wait, right? You got to wait it out. You got to wait until they actually bring the kids, and you got to wait, and you can't blow cover. And these guys just go through this emotional roller coaster every time.
Wow. Well, I think we covered all the different points as far as where to direct people for resources, or if they want to participate or get the word out. Obviously, share this video. That would be one great way to put the information out there. And then definitely visit OURrescue.com. You can donate there. You can buy merch to support. There are resources there that you can access for training and educational purposes. As we wrap this up, Chap, is there any parting comments or anything that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, one last thing. It is OURrescue.org to go and on all the social media platforms as well. But it just popped up in front of me when you were talking, and being in the homesteading community, being in the family community that we are, being where we live and what we do. Man, there is a site, part of the OUR site under what we do. There's an area called Children Need Families, and OUR actually helps to get kids adopted who have gone through this, who have been trafficked, into families who are willing to take on that, because that's a special kind of adoption. It's not average, but OUR helps with that. And they've done 140 families assisted so far, 223 funded by OUR, and 145 grants given by OUR to help out. So, OUR is much more than just boots on the ground. But man, in our community of people who can adopt and have a place where children don't have to be put back into the big city Babylonian lifestyle, and they can go out and learn how to farm and be with their siblings and a family in a secure environment, man, I would love this community to pray about, getting involved in adopting some of those kids and getting them out of the foster care system. That's a whole nother story. Getting them out of the foster care system and into a loving, secure, safe home.
Yeah, well, that is great. I think that is the perfect way to end this. I really appreciate your time, Chap. Thank you for your courage and what you do. We'll obviously be praying for you and this next mission, and hopefully we'll get to see y'all soon here.
Yeah, hopefully.
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, we can get together. And thanks for taking the time. And so definitely go to OURrescue.org and you can donate there and check out their resources and share this video on your social media platform. Share it with your friends and family. And we thank and appreciate all y'all for watching. And we'll see y'all in the next video.
All right. See y'all
Hey,
later.
appreciate you guys. God bless. Take
Thanks,
care.
Chap. Have a great night. See you, bud.